Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. With host and founder, Richard Case, and co-host and retreat leader, Kathy Ricconi. Jesus reminds us to watch for the signs of his return. Today, we will explore further what we are seeing in our times that line up with what signs he said would indicate the potential of the end and his return. We will also discuss the practical meaning of this as we watch and as a remnant prepare as he so leads. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is End Times Friday, and we are going to be airing this 1st of February, and we're excited again to have our good friends Eric and Rabbi Ephraim, Denny, and Kathy and I, of course, and we're very excited to catch up because lots and lots happening. First of all, Eric, how was you were in the U.S. during the holiday, right?
That's correct. I arrived in the Caribbean around December 5th, and then I got back to Israel around January 7th.
Oh, great. How was it?
That's nice.
Oh, it was exhausting.
So you back home and in Israel, and Rabbi, how about you? What did you do during the Hanukkah and the holidays?
I don't think, because there's not really holidays here. So we did Hanukkah, but it's regular work time all the time, so I just worked right through.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, great. Well, it's good to have you. So our first question is, since the last time we were, there's been a hostage deal with Hamas. So, maybe Eric, you could start, kind of bring us up to date. What happened? How is it working? And what's the status of that?
So the deal that got concocted was based upon the deal that was provided by the Netanyahu administration back in May, with some significant changes along the way. And it calls for 3 phases. And then it was promoted subsequently by the Biden administration and was largely rejected by Hamas at the time. And there are lots of reasons why Hamas rejected it, but one of the main clauses that they demanded all along their negotiations was that whatever deal got constructed, it must include a clause that guarantees the end of the fighting in Gaza. So I find kind of ironic because there's really no such thing as ending peace here or ending. It's just how long will quiet last before the next outbreak of fighting. And since Hamas tends to be the one who starts these things, I find it all ironic that they're demanding a 1-year ceasefire. But that clause was a major concession by Hamas, although they deny it, because that is not currently included in the current deal that's being executed right now. So this deal calls for 3 phases. And in the first phase, Israel is going to be getting 33 hostages. The army believes that most of this 33 are right. There are hostages, women, children. There are really only 2 children here left in Gaza supervised. It's clear there are a lot of, I guess, is there not. In any case, and also the age, I think it's 55. And once these 33 hostages are released, they end up in the bodies of this group. And they're supposed to move on to the second phase, which hasn't been fully negotiated yet. And during this period, there's a ceasefire in Gaza, and the idea is withdrawing troops from large, first of all, populated areas of Gaza. They haven't done it yet, they're gradually doing There's a schedule that's a part of the deal. Exact details of the schedule. There's a schedule, and at the end of phase 1, that's my understanding, there will be a perimeter around Gaza, roughly, depending upon its location, 700 meters, which is about a half a mile. Is that right? Yeah, about a half a mile to almost a mile. Basically, like a landing. Even military there, but they'll certainly be no civilian structures, and sort of you venture in there if you're a civilian on your own. But highly likely, probably be shot. And according to my understanding, at the end of this phase, there will still also be troops, Israeli troops. That's what's called the Philadelphia border, not Philadelphia, but Philadelphia. That is the about a 3-kilometer deep region bordering the Egyptian border, and there will be troops there. And not only this is to prevent large-scale smuggling of the attempts by Hamas to rearm. And the border between Gaza and Egypt is supposed to open to certain types of people, mostly Gazans who need medical care inside Egypt. And it's not clear to me exactly who's manning that border, or is it the Palestinian Authority, but I think it's been confirmed. And so we really don't know yet, and nor do we know the date in which that. And then in return for these 33 hostages, there's something in the vicinity of 1,800 terrorist prisoners that were released from Israeli jails.
Can you expand just a little bit on, because I was really curious about this, these 1,800 prisoners. So they are imprisoned for terrorist activity, is that correct?
No. Okay. There are roughly, out of this number, there are roughly 200 that have stood trial and have been convicted of murder.
Okay.
And so I'm at like 200 in this category, okay?
Okay.
And there were rumors for a while they were not going to be released to either Judea, Samaria, or Gaza, but to some third-party country like Turkey. But it's not clear. There are a lot of terms of this agreement that, one official says one thing, another official says something else. I suspect a lot of it is writing, but it's not being disclosed to the public here in Israel in the level of detail one would need in order to be answer some of these questions.
Right.
So this Hamas announced 4 women released this Saturday. Okay. Now the only women that are left beyond the 3 that were just released, except for one mother, all the rest are really IDF soldiers who are captured in Gaza. Not like combat soldiers, but they were people monitoring the border using video cameras and now, because they're IDF soldiers, the ratio of the number of people released out of prisons goes up compared to. So, for the 3 hostages were just released, there were 90 people released from Israeli prisons. And most of these people, none of them were convicted of murder. They were rock stars. They interfered with actions that were being done in Judea and Samaria. And the crimes are. So with this first round, there was not a lot of angst inside Israel with the population over the nature of the people getting released. That will change this Saturday. Because on the assumption that I'm right, that it will be some of these Israeli IDF soldiers, female IDF soldiers released, then Israel will be releasing something in the vicinity, I believe, of somewhere between 50 to 80 real convicted terrorists. with this case. And there's some names that have been released. And this is very, the mood here in Israel is very mixed, and it swings back and forth daily, I would say. And within Israel, there's obviously, the vast majority of the population, is willing to do a deal to get the hostages out. But there's a significant part of the population that's very upset with this deal, because, in part because it doesn't end the conflict of the war with Hamas. Hamas is being perceived as being still in charge. There's one difficulty. But I think the larger population is just going through this process of releasing really nefarious people with this game. The last time we did this, we ended up with young Yassin being positive. And the fear is that with this round and with the number of terrorists being released, we're just going to expect major problems from down the road. Okay? But that's the deal, and this will live up to it. In addition to the general amongst the population over this issue, which is a huge issue, right? I mean, right now, this is the main issue that people are having to deal with. You have to remember that there are families. And I have a good friend, he's a friend of the his brother was murdered by a terrorist. The murderer is going to be released from prison. I'm not sure this weekend, but in one of these weekends, as the change goes on, the murderer of his brother, and that's all over the country. And it's a smaller country, so everybody knows somebody whose family is dealing with the fact that the murder of their family member is now going to be released prematurely from prison.
What's the numbers? How many hostages are ultimately going to be released back to Israel, and how many are going to go back to Hamas? And we know that wasn't there originally like over 200 that were taken, and how many have been coming back, and then what's left? And does that mean the rest of them are dead?
Now, if you'll excuse me a second, I went to this detailed numbers in my most recent piece, and so I'm gonna go back, pull it up, and so all the numbers in front of me. In the meantime, maybe try and do you agree, disagree with anything I just talked about?
Yeah, I agree with everything you've said, but I would strengthen what you said about the country, even those who agree that this had to be done, because we're so desperate to get our people back from captivity, evil captivity in Gaza. So people are so desperate for that, and it's gone on for 470 days or something like that. People are just going mad. So even those who support it and believe that we just have to do this deal are just freaking out. We're just really torn, worried, don't know if it's the right thing, even though we really have to do it. I'll throw in some Judaism here, some from the Torah. In the Torah, we've had a long history in the Jewish people of people taking Jews captive. Throughout the Middle Ages, the local authorities would capture Jews and rabbis, and usually for money. They would bribe the community. If you want your rabbi back, you have to pay us, tons of money.
Yeah.
And they drastic. So anyway, we've had much experience over thousands of years with captives, and the Rabbi, one of the major codifiers of Jewish law, deals with the question of what do you pay for ransom? Like how, are there any rules and principles? And the overriding principle that he says is that you should never pay more to redeem a hostage than everyone else in the world will pay. Because if you do, then Jews will be a target. Then whoever it is will know that you're a Jew. Their Jews are so caring about life and about their families that they're afraid to do anything for it. So they know that's going to happen. We're just going to put ourselves in deeper water in the future. And there are great rabbis who told that they were taken captive, they were told by their communities, they told their communities, do not ransom me, because if you do, it's going to lead to lots more. So Israel is doing exactly not that. And we're aware that this is going to bring more problems. Hamas and other terror organizations and Iran, they know how much they can gain and how much they can squeeze us. For every Jewish life, we're giving up 30 to 50 terrorists. And we're getting back a baby who they disgustingly, sometimes a dead baby we're going to be getting back, who they disgustingly kidnapped from their homes. And we're giving up 30 to 50 terrorists who are determined to come back and kill more of us. So this is not easy for us to be witnessing. It's affecting our long-term feeling of security. Hamas is going to rebuild. These terrorists have been past terrorists that we have believed have experienced with this, and I think it's something like 80% of them go back to terrorism. So, you don't have to be a prophet to know that we're asking for trouble, and that's not easy to live with in a small country where, we're anyway even today having almost daily terror attacks. You guys don't hear about them probably too much, but it's almost every day that there are terror attacks somewhere in the country, and we're just asking for more.
Yeah.
What?
Is there a belief among anyone that there is a bigger story playing out that behind the scenes, and it just hasn't played yet, that something big is about to happen that would maybe resolve the questions you're raising here?
You mean by the Hamas or you mean by some other?
Either. Well, I was first thinking, some negotiated, we'll get to phase one, and then, all hell's going to break loose, like Trump said. So is there some other thing, or even a willingness to sacrifice at some point and say we're going to end this thing? And then I guess the bigger question is, there's some bigger plan that some folks believe this is going to work out fine, and we trust that.
So it may not be publicized in the United States, but we've had a great publicity around it was January 11th, which is Shabbat, the Saturday. Trump's Middle East negotiator, Steve Witkoff, if I don't pronounce his name right, was in the area and actually in Israel and demanded to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu on the Sabbath. And in most cases, Prime Minister Netanyahu, except for what we call Pikui Nefesh, which is the risk of human life, he would not be violating the Sabbath. He was given basically an ultimatum that it doesn't matter. He was meeting with Steve Witkoff. They met. And in that meeting, and there was a lot of arm twisting going on. Basically, Witkoff threatened to get on the plane with Trump. There's no deal. He was President-elect Trump at the time. And Prime Minister Netanyahu felt like basically they were going to twist behind his back and no choice. And he capitulated on several key issues that were important in Israel that resulted in the current team. And no one knows whether as part of that, people are assuming and hoping as a part of it, they got certain promises from Trump, in the Trump administration, and no one knows for sure. And no one really knows. So, and those kind of assurances we want something along the line of what to do with Iran, other higher level issues, but no one knows. And we're not going to know probably for a long time. So that resulted in this deal that has a lot of mixed emotions. You've been here for a while, but I'm not covering here in Israel. And it's been a difficult 6-month period to live through for the next 6 weeks. And we'll see whether there's another deal take place. We really don't. I believe, and I'm not sure my opinion is the main opinion in the country, I believe that if Hamas gets too greedy with respect to the number of terrorists we're going to have to release from prison for the next batch of hostages, then I don't see how the government survives going through a second phase of this. If the terms are more in line like what we're talking about now, like maybe 15 or 20 terrorists for every Israeli soldier, then probably we'll continue going on to the second phase. But I honestly don't think. I'm not sure anybody. I'm not even sure anyone in the government is.
Were you able to pull up the numbers? What's
Yes, I am. So on October 7th, 251 people hostages. Most of them civilian. There were some soldiers. There were 4 hostages already being held by Hamas since about 2014. Of those 4, 2 are known to be dead and 2 are known to be alive. So that's a total of 255. As of 6 weeks ago, when I got those numbers off the government website, it hadn't been updated since then. As of basically 5 or 6 weeks ago, beginning of the year, 154 hostages in all, out of the 255, released or rescued from where their bodies found. Okay? That means basically 97 plus the 4. One hostage. Okay. We know that the 2 for sure, right? And the Army believes, okay, basically, the Army believes that 37 plus 2, 39 are no longer. Okay? And that would mean, in theory, after this first phase, after 64 or so hostages left to being held by Hamas. And we just sure on here, most of them are. That's what's going to constitute the second. Now, I don't know how many of those are soldiers. You have soldiers. Hamas doesn't care if they're male, around the age of 50, because they know that many Israelis are in reserve duty. They consider them soldiers, and they're going to ask a very high ratio of terrorists and prisoners to be released for each one of them. And everyone's anxious here about what that number is going to be. There are certain individuals convicted and holding multiple life sentences being held in Israeli prisons at the moment. And man, I don't see how the government will survive with those names forced to be on the list. I really don't.
Yeah.
Really recommend it.
What as this plays out, what is Israel position and activity to prevent Hamas from reforming and rearming and just going back to now another factor to keep attacking Israel?
I suspect that Ephraim and I disagree on this issue, so I'll go first and let Ephraim chime in after, if that's okay. So I don't believe that, despite what our Prime Minister may have said publicly, it was ever possible to eliminate Hamas 100% as a fighting force. For sure, you could eliminate them as an entity because they're religious fanatics.
Yeah.
And religious fanaticism like this persists no matter what. Okay? And they're just another form of ISIS or Qaeda or the Taliban. It's all the same vein.
Yeah.
It's all the same philosophy of death and murder. And at any price, the non-believers support them. And so, we can't get rid of the idea, and I don't think we can even get rid of the entity. I think the realistic goal was to hit them hard enough that their military capability and organized military capability was damaged beyond repair. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, that nothing is forever, and that it would take them a very, very long time, a long meaning more than 10 years, to reconstitute themselves as a fighting force along the lines of what they are. The other part of the goal, like 3 main goals, the other was hostage. So far, if you talk about the hostages, you talk about the Hamas the fighting force, I went through roughly the calculations by recent. If one can arrive roughly at a conclusion that we recovered about 85% of the hostages that were kidnapped by Hamas in a reply today. Okay, after this first phase. Even around 15% still and you can almost use a similar number for Hamas's fighting force. Okay, for the last 2 months of the war, there basically no rockets. I mean, there was like maybe a rocket or something, which is close to zero. If you get the zero, this part of the world. And so, and when you look at all the estimates that the Army was thinking about, how many were killed, how many were captured, how many were injured, and the ability to be able to fight, you can come to a similar number that roughly 85% of Hamas's fighting forces and its armaments, and most of which is time is probably only 55 or 60% destroyed, and some of them disabled. You can come up with something similar. 85% of their fighting capabilities disappear. But as Secretary of State Blinken was so happy to point out, they are capable of reconstituting themselves. They are trying to do that now. They're basically, there are 300,000 males under the age of 17 in Gaza. Every year they're moving. And Hamas will recruit them. And it'll take years to train them, years to recruit them. So the question is arming them. And how effective can it be to prevent them from getting armed? Okay, and that's a big unknown. There's some things that we've talked about in place. Those whether they'll be effective or not. So the extent that they exist there, and most of their leadership has been killed inside Gaza, but leadership emerges, and just it's not for two. Okay? The days where a Western country could drop an atomic bomb and kill more than 100,000 civilians in order to end the war, those days are over. It's not going to happen. Bombing in Dresden, basically annihilation of civilians by the Allies in order to get Germany to surrender. It's impossible to see how it will be conducted this way. And given the media and given the internet and all this other stuff that's around there. So in the absence of that, it's virtually impossible for any country, not just Israel, against adversary, to unconditionally capitulate. It just doesn't happen. So the question now is what happens next inside Gaza? The problem now is, this is now my opinion, and again, Ephraim should chime in just a second. It's my view that in the last month or so in the war, okay, first terrorists would emerge from someplace in some area we'd already cleared before, and they would ambush Israeli soldiers, they would plant mines, what they call IEDs all over the place in Gaza, and we had a quite high kind of casualty rate in United troops in the last month of the war, unusually high, and most of them were resulting from either their vehicle or they stumbling across a buried explosive. And so, if the war were to continue, we resume, it's my assumption that we're going on for a longer time. Okay. And yes, we would be killing many more terrorists in the process. We must start losing a high number of troops. If the trend continues. So are we in the area of the law of diminishing returns where, I don't know, I'm not a military expert, but I have the intelligence that the military has right now. I believe most of the leadership in the military was advocating for this in one form or another. Because it's been portrayed in the press like they could, to try to launch commando waves and rescue them would likely result in hostages dead and less than awfully lucky. And so they were recommending that in order to get the hostages, should speed up. But no one knows what the next phase of the deal in terms of what we're going to do. Let's just stop and let it
Yeah, actually, we're at the end of this session. We'll pick it up at the very beginning of next one. So what I heard you say is that obviously it doesn't really end, and they are going to have a period of re-upping, and it's just a matter of how long will it take them, and then what will be Israel's response to that. But you're going to be dealing with this problem, it sounds like. And then Ephraim, we'll start our next session and have you kind of weigh in on that as we look at that, and then look at other issues like Hezbollah and Iran as well. But thank you so much for providing this amazing information to us, because again, we're getting very limited perspective here in America of what we hear, what we don't hear, and what we think and what we don't think. And so it's really just a beautiful thing for us to get the truth from you guys. So thank you so much. So we will pick it up. Please, everybody, come back next week for session 2, and we're gonna pick this up even further. So thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by Living Waters Abide Ministries. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.